What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So we're going to take a look and listen to Speaker Pelosi. She's going to be talking about the first infrastructure bill, the second infrastructure bill, the debt ceiling, funding the government. There's a lot at stake right now. And so we're going to hear what she has to say about the situation. But first off, on this channel, we talk about news that matters. If that sounds like something interesting to you, please subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell notification. That way you'll get notified anytime we put out a video. This will be a busy week, and I know I've been saying that for the last couple of weeks. This is the week. So this is make or break. We're going to see some stuff go down this week that we probably haven't seen before. We might even see a government shutdown on Friday if things don't go right. And then in mid-October, we might also see a default if they can't handle this debt ceiling. So there's a lot at stake. So I'm just telling you guys, stay tuned. Now, let me also remind you, if you see my name and a picture of me in the comment section, make sure you see a check mark next to my name. That check mark signifies that it's me. If you do not see that check mark, it's not me. It's someone trying to impersonate me. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right over to this interview. And I'm going to try not to interrupt, but there are some points here that I do want to let you guys know about, or you might not catch it right away, so I'll just bring your attention to it. So here we go.
A week that may be make or break for President Biden's ambitious agenda. More than $1 trillion for infrastructure investments, another $3 trillion plus to address climate change, child care, education, and more. All this as the government shutdown looms on Friday, plus the prospect of America defaulting for the first time in history if Congress does not soon authorize government borrowing to pay past debts.
This would be the first time in history that we default. So we've had government shutdowns before, but a default, that's a whole different situation.
At the center of it all, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who joins us this week from the Capitol. Good morning, Madam Speaker.
Good morning, George. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today.
So I just laid out a pretty daunting list right there. You've called the next few days a time of intensity for Congress. Have you ever faced a challenge with so much at stake?
Every time we face a challenge, you say it's an historic challenge, whether it's passing the Affordable Care Act or other legislation that we passed in the previous administration. It's all the wonderful legislative process that we have. But I thank you for calling this President Biden's agenda, because that's exactly what it is. This is the vision of the president, and he has said that while he wants to pass the infrastructure bill, and we will, he will not confine his vision for the future to just that bill, that it had to be about building back better. And building back better has the support of over 95% of our caucus. So when you say Democrats divided, no, they're overwhelmingly, I've never seen actually over 95% of the caucus just about for anything. There are some who disagree, and I respect that about the size of the package, and so some in the Senate, a couple in the Senate as well, and we have to find our common ground, respectful of each other's views. But this isn't about moderates versus progressives. Overwhelmingly, the entirety of our caucus, except for a few whose judgment I respect, support the vision of Joe Biden, and we will make progress on it this week.
So she just said that there's going to be a negotiation when it comes to that $3.5 trillion. So we're not going to see a $3.5 trillion. That's indicated there. She understands the other side. She understands their concern when it comes to the $3.5 trillion. So we're probably going to be looking at a number that's less than $3.5 trillion.
So make progress, not necessarily pass. You said you have support of 95% of Democrats. The problem is you need 98 or 99% to pass the bills. And I know
Good point. They have thin margins here. So 95% sounds good, but you need more than that. You need that 98, 99%. You don't really have any wiggle room. In the Senate, you have no wiggle room at all. You need all 50 senators to vote for it, all 50 Senate Democrats. But when it comes to the House, you have a little bit of wiggle room, like three votes, give or take.
You said the infrastructure bill is going to pass, but the leader of the Progressive Caucus in the House, Jamala Prayapal, is balking. She said on Friday that voting on this bill tomorrow is an arbitrary date, adding that more than 50 members will vote no if you first don't have agreement on the broader social investment bill. So are you confident these progressive members are going to vote yes, even though she says no?
Let me just say we're going to pass the bill this week.
So she backpedaled. Now, talking about the arbitrary date, that's that September 27th date that Senator Pelosi gave. So she gave this date a few weeks back just to satisfy the moderates in the party, because the moderates were saying that they're not going to move forward with the budget resolution, voting on that budget resolution to move forward with the reconciliation bill until they voted on the first infrastructure bill. And so that is why Speaker Pelosi gave that September 27th date. And so now we're looking at September 27th tomorrow. What's going to happen?
I promised that we would bring the bill to the floor. That was according to the language that those who wanted this to be brought to the floor tomorrow wrote into the rule. We will bring the bill to the floor tomorrow for consideration. But you know, I'm never bringing a bill to the floor that doesn't have the votes. And I think any time you put an arbitrary date, well, remember when the Republicans said they were going to overturn the Affordable Care Act on the anniversary of the Affordable Care Act? I knew right then and then they were doomed. You cannot choose the date. You have to go when you have the votes.
But she chose the date. She said September 27th. By September 27th, that is when they're going to vote on the first infrastructure bill. So she's saying one thing, but in reality, she did give that date. And now they are looking at a situation where it's exactly what she said. Now they don't have the votes. Obviously, if she's saying that we're going to vote on it sometime this week, then they don't have the votes right now. As it stands, it's not going to pass. And we're talking about that first infrastructure bill will not pass. And Representative Jayapal, they talked about her earlier. She is the progressive chair. She's a progressive caucus chair. And so she carries a lot of weight when it comes to progressives. And so she can easily say, yeah, this is going to be a no vote. We're not going to vote for this first infrastructure bill, and it won't go anywhere.
Reasonable time, and we will. And I do believe that we will do. First of all, let me just say it's an eventful week. First of all, we have to make sure, just chronologically, we have to make sure we keep government open, and we will. Second of all, we have to honor the vision of President Biden, and we thank him for his leadership and his courage putting forth such a bold package. In order to move forward, we have to build consensus. It's not winners, losers. It's bring people together, and that's what we always do in the Democratic Party. And what President has put forth will create many, many more good-paying jobs, especially in terms of addressing the climate crisis, which has not been fully addressed in the infrastructure bill. It will lower costs for families by lowering the cost of prescription drugs for seniors and healthcare costs across the board. It will give one of the largest tax cuts for the middle class with the Biden child tax credit, and it will be paid for by making everyone pay their fair share. Lower cost, tax cuts, paid for, more jobs for the American people.
The question is, can you get everybody to agree to that? If I heard you correctly, you're saying the vote will not necessarily be tomorrow on the infrastructure bill. You're going to put it up when you have the votes to pass it.
Yeah, it may be tomorrow.
It may be tomorrow, but right. But let me just say, in order to get the votes to pass it, it sounds like you're going to need agreement on the broader social investment bill.
Absolutely.
Build back.
You're right. You're absolutely
and so that is going to happen this week as well?
Well, let me just say, we're prepared. We're ready. Yesterday, the Budget Committee passed out the Build Back Better legislation at the full $3.5 trillion. That was the number that was sent to us by the Senate and by the President. Obviously, with negotiations, there'll have to be some changes in that. The sooner, the better, so that we can build our consensus to go forward. And we will do that. The American people need that to happen, and that's the overwhelming for the people agenda.
The holdouts in the Senate, of course, everyone knows Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, at least those two. Joe Manchin says $3.5 trillion is way too much, and it doesn't necessarily have to pass this year. Kyrsten Sinema says she's not going to support any increases in income taxes or corporate taxes. Have you made progress on those issues? It doesn't sound like it.
Well, Chuck Schumer and I and Secretary Yellen the other day came forward in a press event and said that we had reached a framework of agreement. People said, well, what are the specific? Well, we'll see what we need. We'll see how the number comes down and what we need in that regard. But we have agreed on an array of pay-fors in the legislation. This will be paid for. So when some say, oh, well, what about inflation? It will be paid for. And that's the beauty of it, by having those in our economy and society who have not paid their fair share, paying their fair share. So again, the Senate and the House, those who are not in full agreement with the president's rate, let's see what our value, let's not talk about numbers, and dollars, let's talk about values. And the values are about, I'm sorry?
Is the solution to paying for it a carbon tax?
The array of issues that are there, I'm not going to be, let's see what we need to have, and there are those who have suggested that. So when I say we're ready, we've investigated, or shall we say, documented everything that we need to be ready with legislative language to go forward. And I'm very excited about the hard work that everybody did. We stayed on schedule. They said you couldn't do it by September 15th. We did. We have our budget committee yesterday taking the work of the committees and putting it forward. We've been carefully trying to see what could be birdable. You know, in the House, I'm used to negotiating with the White House or among ourselves and with the Senate, but to negotiate we don't negotiate with the parliamentarian. She will make judgments about something that might violate the bird rule or provisions of privilege, whatever that is. And that's a bath that legislation has to take. So all of these things are in place. We're trying to get them be as ready as possible. We are ready on our side. We just have to see how quickly the parliamentarian can operate.
I know the budget committee passed a resolution calling for $3.5 trillion, but it sounds like you acknowledge that the final number is going to be somewhat smaller than that.
Yeah. I mean, that seems self-evident.
Okay, and so there it is again. She's just saying, look, yeah, it's going to be lower than 3.5 trillion. So they do have a lot of work to do when it comes to what the number is going to be. She doesn't want to focus on that number. She wants to focus on what's in the bill, and then they can adjust the number. Because when you're looking at the top line number, that's based on how long the programs can go on for. So if it's a child tax credit, for example, if they want it to go on until 2025, well, then obviously that costs more money than if they want it to go on for, let's say, a couple more years, maybe 2023 or something like that. And so they need to figure out what they want in the bill. And then once they figure that out, then they can work on that timeline to get that number to something that all the politicians, or at least all the Democrats in the Senate, are comfortable with.
Self-evident. And so it's not just, we have some, shall we say, bird bath, privilege, kinds of things. It's legislation. So the fact is that this is the excitement of it all. It's just in real time and exploitation of a few people not in agreement being called a division in the Democratic Party. Everybody overwhelmingly, and I think even those who want a smaller number, support the vision of the president.
Now, I tend to agree with her. I think Democrats, they want the first infrastructure bill as well as the second infrastructure bill. They want the programs that are in those bills. But it's just a matter of the number, the top line number, and some of the other things that they've mentioned in the past, the order of how they want to vote on these bills. That's what they're hung up on. But the vision, they want President Biden's vision. So we're just going to have to see if they can get there.
This is really transformative. It's transformative for women when you think about child care and child tax credit and family medical leave and universal pre-K and home health care. How much in agreement are we on that? When you talk about the climate crisis, which we have a responsibility, again, to the children, but to our faith to protect God's creation, this planet, how much do you want to spend on that? So that adding up what our priorities are should take us to a number where we find common ground. Can we shorten the time or some other things to make the number smaller? That's our discussion now, but we're ready for it.
You said the government is going to stay open. Are you as confident that the government is going to avoid default? Because Republicans have made it very clear they're not going to provide any votes.
Isn't that irresponsible beyond words? The full faith and credit of the United States should not be questioned. That's in the Constitution of the United States, 14th Amendment. Go look at that. It's in the Constitution of the United States. There is a school of thought that says we don't even have to have these votes. But we do. As of now, we still do have to have it. And we cooperated on 3 occasions when President Trump was president in order to lift the debt ceiling. Even to have the discussion that it could possibly be in default, it did the last time, lowered our credit rating. Who said it more articulately than Mitch McConnell at the time? You cannot play Russian roulette with the debt ceiling and the well-being of our economy. So
he's willing to eat that right now. Are you confident Democrats can pass it on their own?
Well, we want this to be bipartisan. If we didn't want it to be bipartisan, we would have put it in the reconciliation bill.
So, and then there's another thing there. They could put it in the reconciliation bill. So what I think is going to happen is I think they're actually going to bring this vote into the Senate, because the House has already passed the raising of the debt ceiling, or at least extending the debt ceiling until 2022, and as well as funding the government until December of this year. So we're looking at a situation where the House already voted on it. It's now in the Senate. The Senate will vote on it. And when the Senate votes on it, if they pass it, if you do get at least 10 Senate Republicans, then it will move forward. If it doesn't move forward, now they're going to have to look at that tough decision. Do we bring this into the budget reconciliation bill? And if we do, it's going to take time for them to get that all set up. So right now, we're looking at a real crucial time. This week will be very, very crucial.
That would have been a decision we had to make when we wrote the Budget Act, but nonetheless, the decision was made that it would always be bipartisan, whether on our part, as we have cooperated in the past with Republican presidents, or on their part. It is totally irresponsible. And I would think that the business community would speak out on this, because it has devastating impact on our credit rating, as well as global economy. This is beyond a big deal. So
beyond a big deal.
Let's hope that the Republicans will find enough of them find some level of responsibility to our country, to honor what's in the Constitution, that we not question the full faith and credit of the United States of America. They know full well what the consequences are. They preached it when the former president was in office, and we always cooperated. It's always been bipartisan, and it should be again.
Okay, so that was Speaker Pelosi, and you heard that last part she's talking about. This is a serious problem, and I thought it was interesting. She's talking about during the Trump administration, they did it 3 times. Okay, so they raised the debt ceiling 3 times. This is all political. It's all political at this point. And so you're having Republicans saying, no, we're not going to vote for raising the debt ceiling. Now, this is to pay for past bills. This is not to pay for future bills, and that's what the argument is right now. Well, we don't want to pay for this $3.5 trillion bill. We don't want to pay for, I guess, the bipartisan infrastructure bill is a part of it too, because that's $1.2 trillion. We don't want to have to pay for that. But we're talking about the past bills that we saw all last year during the pandemic, all the different stimulus packages that went through. You need to pay for that. And so that's what the focus is. But you're hearing politicians try to veer off and say, this is the reason why we're voting against it, because look at all these big bills that they're trying to put in front of us. I'm telling you, if you don't watch my channel on a regular basis, you're going to want to watch this week, because so much stuff is going to be coming out. If you guys have any questions, post them down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you the next one. Bye.